Today's
Oh God.
podcast is brought to you by GS Gruel, where, it's not great, but it's technically food. So
There you
there's
go.
there you
That's
go.
sounds like
Sorry.
us.
Yourself a great big bowl of GS Groove. Order now. When we were children, we heard the legends of our lost ancestral homeland. A mysterious world named Verra. A place of beauty and magic blessed by the divines themselves. That mystical world then fell to a great calamity that caused our predecessors to flee before everything descended into madness and flames. These stories fascinated many children, but that was long ago. Now we stand waiting to march through the portals to a land we thought lost. Alongside our fellow brothers and sisters of the Gray Sentinels, we march for many different reasons, but we stand united by one simple goal: reclaim our ancestral homeland and build a nation where all mortals can call home. We will press onward towards glory, adventure, and perhaps even a bit of prosperity. With each step towards Verra, we recite the Grey Oath in our hearts.
As others fall to darkness, a sentinel is righteous. As others waver before the unknown, a sentinel stands courageous. In times of war, a sentinel's wrath cleaves a path to peace. In times of peace, a sentinel's strength lifts us to prosperity. This oath I pledge as a sentinel. I vow to serve my people, protect my home, serve my divine, and honor my lord. Gold in peace, steel in war. Together we shall weather all storms.
Boy, wow,
Here
chills. All right, welcome everybody. How's it going? Did everybody like that? I saw the 07s in chat. Yeah, so that's our new recruitment video. It was basically done by a lot of our Gray Sentinels. Thank you, Exiled. Thank you, Morador. Thank you, everybody in our production channel. Really appreciate you guys. It was very, very well done.
Yep. A lot of hard work. I also want to call out all of the Sentinels who took the time to record themselves. I think it's, I think it says a lot about our guild that people come up to get involved and, take part in creating something bigger than themselves. So, thank you guys for helping make something special.
Yeah. And before we get started, let me thank all the follows that are coming in real quick. We had a few from last month that I'm just going to reiterate here. We have Dominus Regius, Dio the Hero, Paranaut, Jamie Chaos, Mute Matt. Also, Jamie, thank you for shouting us out in your channel. I appreciate that. Sithingale, Ahmed Elsier, Wizzy McNasty, Just YXon, Jesse is Jeb 69, 420 based God, that guy. AV Gaming, thank you for the follow. Cbet, thank you for the follow. Rigamortis, Boner Geese, and Grumpy Guy, thank you guys for the follows. Really appreciate you. Really appreciate you guys stopping by and just, watching us talk about Ashes of Creation. So, thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. We are coming at you live from the Ashes of the Grey. We're a guild called the Gray Sentinels, and we are an RP PvX guild for Ashes of Creation. And boy, what a year this last month has been. I basically got that quote from No One Else, who is another content creator in the community, and boy, was he right. So this last month was so much for the Ashes of Creation community, but it's September. We're getting closer. So because of what all transpired this month, this one might be a long one, guys, so buckle in. I'm Llewd Lloyd. I'm joined by my glorious guildmaster and co-host, Anduin Kayvon. We also have our other glorious co-host, That Way. He's kind of coming back to the show. He's coming back into the Ashes Creation community, the Ashen Herald, aka Daedalus. How are you guys?
Oh, not too bad. I think it's I'm pretty hyped up after this month. There's just been so much that's been announced. That phase 2 and phase 3 really are looking exciting. So
yeah, you're telling me.
I'm ready for I'm ready to wake up once September is over,
wake me up when September ends for real. Welcome in, Mio.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely the same way. Super hyped. I mean, I'm still like on an adrenaline high from this month's stream. So yeah, it's fantastic to be here.
That's right. So both of you guys, I'm like in a privileged spot. Both of you guys are Phoenix Initiate members. You had the verbal NDA release on your Firebrand fight, so we get to talk about that. Daedalus and I were on Jamie's stream last night. I know anybody that's from Jamie's community that is stopping by to watch this, you probably already heard us talk about a lot of this stuff. So you may hear some of the same stuff. Sorry, but not sorry at the same time.
But Lloyd, there's one more.
There is one more.
I'm going to talk about spears.
Ooh, You got a spear for me, Anduin? That's good.
I got a big spear for you. We're going to talk
Let's
about
go.
that.
I like that. I like that a lot. So I'm just going to speed run through this because we had the AMA this month. We're going to speed run it. It's been beaten to death. I don't really care that much about it. I'm going to just give you guys facts. We're just going to move on past it real quick. But just so everybody's aware, we have the keys that showed up. They are available to buy. You have Wave 1, Wave 2, Wave 3. Now, Wave 1 and Phase 1 are different. So Phase 1 starts October 25th. Wave 1 of the people that buy the Alpha 2 key packs will be able to start November 8th, okay? And then Wave 2 starts December 20th, and Wave 3 starts May 1st, right? So we are going to be looking good there. Those are the dates for you guys. I put them up on stream. I'm going to come back to us now because I care more about us. Keys are overdone. If you think the game is a scam, don't buy them. If you want to play, you have an extra chance. August 21st for Phase 1 and Phase 3 will be purchasable until August 21st. Or wait, sorry. I forget. Anyways, Phase 1 and Phase 3 are purchasable.
You got it, Lloyd.
Yeah, whatever. I quit. I quit.
No, keep going. Go,
I
go,
quit.
go.
Anyways,
You got
persistence
this,
will
bro.
happen in phase 3. Expect phase 1 and phase 2 to have plenty of wipes. Phase 1 is just networking, stability, all that stuff. Phase 2 will have a little bit more stuff in it. We will also have the rogue. There will be more guild stuff. Yeah, expect a lot of stuff. We may be talking about some of it later on in the podcast as well. But yeah, I would rather us get to the juicy bits, the Firebrand release, all of that stuff. So we may have a video issue here real quick when I transition. We're gonna find out, and if it is, I'll fix it. So, oh no, it works perfectly. We're good. Okay. So, yes, Anduin, Daedalus. Did you have fun killing Firebrand?
Daedalus?
Well, yeah, absolutely, without a doubt. It was a good mixture of tension, adrenaline, and seeing it for the first time. It was pretty epic to be a part of that. So yeah, top notch in my opinion in terms of fun.
Also, guys, if you have questions, make sure to put them in chat. We can answer them as well here. So, I didn't get any DMs or anything like that from people, but if you do have questions about the test and want to know stuff, we can answer it live right here. So, Anduin, did you have fun?
Mhm. Yeah, I've watched a lot of content creators over the past few days, and there's I kind of find it dumb. This common thread from people that are like, "Oh, this is super simple raid, super easy," and I'm like, every raid does not need to be Final Fantasy end boss level raid over the top. It doesn't need to be. This is one of the first raid bosses we're getting to see, in a world boss in the world. I had fun. It's flashy. It's fun. It keeps you on your toes and stuff hits hard. So for me, I thought it was fun. And I think that a lot of people will have a lot of fun fighting bosses like this and others. So I just. I feel like there's a bit too many doomers out in the community that, they expect Intrepid to shit gold all the time. And let's be honest here, they knock things out of the park pretty often. They deliver pretty well. So, I'm going to say it. This is a good boss. And I'm looking forward to see when they make more complex bosses in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that the main issue that I've had as well in watching a lot of the content creators recently is they're generally speaking from a place that isn't connected to the community. And not to say that there weren't things that needed polish, nobody's perfect. But it's for a first pass in an alpha, it was a pretty solid showing. And I think that it stands on its own, and we know, being in the community, that it's going to take some time to get it fully cooked. And as I know Lloyd is, very familiar with saying, let him cook, guys. I mean, I think that's really important. I would love to see constructive feedback, but comparing it to Final Fantasy flashy raids or WoW experiences, in my opinion, you're not talking about the same thing. You're comparing apples to concrete, and I think you need to judge it for what it is and where it's at in the development process.
I have two very, very important clarifications to make real quick. Steven has answered stuff in the Discord that maybe some of you haven't heard, which is the common complaint that I hear is, oh, this boss is too easy, or it doesn't have enough mechanics or stuff like that. So before we talk about how easy it was or was not, Steven has said in chat or in the main AOC Discord, there is more than enough space to fill. So the question that he is responding to was, hopefully the instant stuff doesn't provide anywhere close to best in slot. To which Stephen replied, there is more than enough space to fill with it in regards to reward tables and the open versus instance content. While the instance content may not include the added risk of player versus player, it also means that the control setting is higher and capable of involving more rigid gameplay mechanics that can be quite tough and high on the skill ceiling. So, what that means for people that don't speak Steven is PvE content is going to be very, very tough, and it should be competitive with PvX content as at the same time. The other, I don't have. Wait, hold on. I might actually hold on. La 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 la. I did this previously. Okay. Oh god, that is so tiny. Bear with me. So the other clarification is they went into the dungeon with 8 people and came out, and Firebrand was there, and Firebrand is meant for a raid of 40 people. To which I had a little bit of concerns when I was talking about that with Jamie on his stream, and Steven happened to be in chat, so he personally responded to me. So I find that to be really, really cool and completely changed my perspective on how I saw things. He said, remember, event spawners are intended to be scaled based on player count, so if a raid enters the dungeon, a bunch of mobs will spawn. But if only a group is doing the event, big world events can happen as a result, and those consequences may not always occur. It's meant to be dynamic and create a unique player response to the world state. Therefore, sometimes if you go in Steel Bloom Capital with a raid of 8 people, you might not get Firebrand, so some of these events may not happen just because the world isn't there, or Anduin.
Or you could get something worse than Firebrand. I think the dynamic events is one of the biggest pulling things for Ashes, for me personally, is having, that you doing the same thing might not always trigger the same thing. And I like that. That's what I like, in
2 Firebrands.
In the world.
Holy shit.
Yeah, 10 Firebrands.
Or Firebrand's daddy.
Yeah, Firebrand's daddy, and then grandfather.
That's true.
Sir Onsington asked a question real quick about did we get into a rhythm with the boss mechanics? At least from my perspective, the boss mechanics, you started to see what the tells were, like the dragging. They do a lot of choreograph stuff. So you see that, and I think that's what's really important is you don't need to have big glowing red on the ground indicating where you need to go. I just need to see, the boss is rearing its head up. That means it's going to do X. And then as the health was depleted, it did seem to adjust and do different things as health got lower. Once it got into execute range, it was just random on what was occurring all the time. Stuff was popping off a lot faster. So that was my experience. Daedalus?
Yeah, I will say eventually, and I think that's maybe where some streamers mentioned it kind of felt like it was more dynamic in the end. There was more awareness as you started to see the tells, because I'll be honest, this was the first time I saw this boss. So just understanding what he was doing, it took me a good bit of the fight to figure that out first. And I was splitting focus between dealing with what my party needed and also seeing what he was doing and trying to digest all of that. So yeah, I definitely felt like it wasn't smash me in the face with a shovel, telling me something was happening. There were some subtle things there, like when he, did his breath and he flew up into the air, very in my opinion, more epic tells. But it was still something that took a little bit of observation and raid awareness to figure out.
It's crazy. So just why Exxon said, I've been watching that fight for hours at 0.25 times speed. Doesn't seem to be any particular rhythm, but well telegraphed. Yeah, so we have some crazy people in this community, by the way. I was watching Pockets. He was dissecting cleric gameplay at 0.25 times speed. every single spell that was cast, how much mana it cost, like what the effect was, and just like making a document on it. Like we have some crazy people in the community that would like to like dissect absolutely everything about these things. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, Pockets, yeah, nerds being nerds. You are here. And yeah. I think that really goes to show like what the community is expecting. And I don't think I know on the lines of people saying that maybe it's too easy or whatnot. Maybe it is because we are power gamers and we take things to the next level. And we like to have a lot of challenge. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I guess what we can do for this testing phases and stuff like that, for those that have access, we'll be able to, test, do the PVX, do these raids, and we'll be able to see, like, is it actually too easy? Is ranged combat just able to hit from afar without, like, the mechanics really mattering? Are we going to be able to do certain things against the boss? And Intrepid can change that. Like, they can just, like, part of this is the transparency, the open feedback, and with player skill and player involvement and player feedback, yeah, we will be able to change the world with Intrepid. And I think that's one of the best things that we have going for us, is this is a company that I can tell cares, at least. Whether they hit or miss, they're always willing to take feedback, and they're always willing to at least think about, like, in the context of Ashes of Creation, does this make sense? And we can help collaborate. I really want to change the narrative of, like, gamers versus devs when it comes to Intrepid, at least, just because they're willing, they're open, they want to be gamers as well, and really make this game the best game possible. So if we can do that, I would like to create that sort of narrative, rather than something like game devs versus Riot, or gamers versus Riot, gamers versus Blizzard. Like, it just doesn't feel right to be combative with them.
I do know we are the most oppressed community out there as gamers, Society just doesn't understand us. But I feel like Intrepid, they are all coming from gaming backgrounds. We're not looking at a bunch of suits trying to make money. We're looking at people who have been lifelong nerds, lifelong gamers, and they're trying to make a game that they themselves want to play. So, like, they want to hear our good, they want to hear our bad. So, get on the forums, get on the Discord, and talk. Let the developers know how you're feeling about the game. That's the biggest thing. One little clarification, Sir Onsington, you asked about boss drop loot for, like, world bosses, raid bosses, stuff like that. The clarification is, yes, there will be some high tier items that drop from bosses that will, like, be quote unquote end game type gear, but there also will be loot that is like resources. So, like, let's say magical steel of rose, whatever, that only drops from this specific boss. That then will be used for crafters to make end game gear as well. So the in-game end game loot that drops from bosses will be really low rate, but they're also going to make equally competitive craftable items that drop that also will make items that you can compete in. So that's kind of my clarification to that. So
yeah, and to add on to that too, I think Steven also mentioned recipes would drop as well, or have a chance to drop from these like world bosses as well. So I think he even said his famous crafters make the best shit. So he definitely is
make the best shit. Yes, they do.
I did want to say something about what, like, on jumping off of what you said, Lloyd, around gamers versus devs. I think what I also see happening in a good way with, Steven's point of view, Intrepid's point of view, is it's also like trying to roll back on gamers versus gamers too, in the sense that like you have like all these very like, let's just say tenured games out there where people are really focused on certain things and, you know, putting their fellow gamer down, you know, for not like doing things fast enough or not being good enough. And that's not to say that you shouldn't have standards and you shouldn't work towards kind of being a more effective player overall. But I think one thing that I do feel has, I'm getting just like a sense of with these different boss fights that we have seen, like starting with Tumok, now with Firebrand, is they are trying to like ease in people in terms of the level of difficulty, so you can ramp up to the encounters. It's not just you do like WoW, is you burn through 80 levels and then you hit an end game and you're expected to kind of see every video, know every strat, walking in the door. I mean, I think there's some level of that. There's also some level of they just trivialize the fights by making, you know, raid finder levels. Now I think story mode levels are coming in too. So they're maybe taking a different way of doing it than Intrepid. I actually prefer what Intrepid's doing, at least from what my perception is that you still have that hard content, but you have ways to get to it that still make you feel like you're accomplishing something as a gamer. Like, again, I've never felt so empowered as a gamer, even though it was definitely not super clean fighting Firebrand. I never felt more empowered to say, hey, we're collaborating as a team to get this done. It didn't feel like, you know, you had a bunch of people that are getting like all butthurt if they died. People died, they were like, hey, I'll get you up, and you've got like this rhythm of camaraderie. And that's the type of environment that I feel like Intrepid's trying to create in the community, because it's a lost art, right? At the end of the day, you've got a lot of these MMOs out there that are very geared towards a solo player doing their thing. That's not a massive multiplayer game. And that's not what Intrepid is going for. They're going for something that goes back to, you need a group to do content. You need a raid to do big raid stuff. You're not going in, you know, being God tier, being the center of the world and taking on a world boss solo.
Yeah. Well, we you guys have been Phoenix Initiate and you've been following along for a long time. And you know a lot of those Phoenix Initiates that were in the raid. Do you feel like maybe that 5 years of knowing each other might have helped a little bit, or?
I sometimes I feel like it might hurt us. So, Daedalus. You know, I just I look at it in this way. You know, we kind of learn what each other plays, right? Like there's some people who they always go tank or they always go cleric and stuff. So we and watching and playing with them over the years, we've kind of understood if they're a good tank or a trash tank, you know? So I mean, you kind of figure out over the years what you need to fix, what you need to build off of, you know.
By trash tank, you mean that they have to pull the trash mobs, right? Not that
no, I mean they are the trash mob, you know, like. But you know, like it's we've played a lot of times, but you know, I look, It's been an experience because we have a lot of clashing personalities in PI, right? You know, like for the longest time, I was like the roleplay guild leader in the community, and I was like one of the few role players in the PI community. So like, you know, have all of that. We have hardcore sweaty PvPers. We have hardcore PvEers. We have filthy casuals. We have people who come from all backgrounds in PI. So I actually do kind of feel it is a good testing pool because you're getting, sure, it's the people who are stupid with their money and dropped, you know, thousands of dollars on a game that's not here, but
they believe in the cause. They believe in the cause.
They believe in the cause, but like for the group you have, the diversity in it of what people are interested in, it's impressive to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree. We had definitely have a gambit of all kinds of gamers, and I do feel that definitely, like, I guess I would, in contrast to what Anduin says, I think that helps us too. I don't think it necessarily hurts us. I feel like as we're learning together, we're going to have different pieces of feedback. And I think that in and of itself helps us get to a better product, right? Because at the end of the day, Steven and the team are very open. That's not to say that they're going to compromise their vision, right? But they are open to making changes. I mean, we saw that in like recent times. We've seen it even in like, different pieces of feedback around the races, around things that they were doing. So I do feel like that there's that level of give and take. The development team is super engaged, and they actually, will make time to actually get to, talk to us, get feedback from the tests. I think they've done something really great about just doing these controlled NDA lifts so we can have conversations and help provide the community with some answers that they might be looking for, but also drive even more conversation. Because at the end of the day, open development only works if people are giving constructive feedback, right? This whole like we were talking about doomers before. That's not to say that like I'm opposed to anyone giving feedback that is, I'm going to say, even, I don't want to say negative because that's not it, but maybe they're giving criticism. If they're giving constructive
criticism.
Exactly. If they're giving constructive criticism, I don't have a problem with it, right? But I think where I do feel like it goes sometimes is in kind of a toxic place. And that's, I think even Steven mentioned, he's like, hey, it was really rough to hear some of the things that I heard, but you know what? We know it's the internet. We know there's going to be things that we're going to need to sift through to get to the real nuggets of goodness. And I feel like they're continuing to do that. We're continuing to see improvement. I mean, if we look at things we fought in A1 that were world bosses, I think there was a video out there about the like elder dragon that we fought in A1 recently, that somebody released that video. In comparison to that and where we see Firebrand, it's like, wow, it's like I do see like such a difference in where they took our feedback,
right,
and they're building out the world and kind of giving us more lore tidbits too. So it feels like they're trying to, in a good way, cater to different types of gamers. Not saying the way that I feel like some developers are doing, like say Blizzard, where they're kind of watering down the game. They're just trying to hit the right feels for each of those gamers, giving us hard content, giving us good stories, giving us a dynamic world. It's just a lot. There's a lot there that I think if you spend the time to really invest in the community, you'll see that a lot more. And that's maybe where I see some of this feedback that is very like on the fringe and just clickbait, that I'm like, that's what honestly feels like upsets me. That's not being a white knight. That's being like a realist that wants to get a good game out there and trying to understand the vision and work with the developers on their vision versus trying to make the game into something that I want that's kind of not in line with what has been communicated as the vision.
Yeah, I mean, on that note that you're talking about that, I think I might actually have that A1 Dragon video footage. Not proud of a lot of that, but it's funny. Because I had a really, really shit rig at the time. I was running a 480X Radeon, not even a 1080 Ti. Like, so graphics pretty rough. My computer was on fire, but it was fun nonetheless. And on that as well, like, I know we're probably going, like, we're kind of baiting people to call us like white knights and intrepid shills and stuff like that. Like, at the end of the day, if the game's good, the game's good, and if the game's shit, the game's shit. But with the amount of openness that Intrepid have, I'm willing to work with them instead of like just straight hate on certain things. Like, I will call them out on their bullshit if there is, and I won't if there's nothing to, if it's nothing burger, you know. But yeah, it kind of sucks to be Steven, where you drop $60 million on a game and people call it a scam, and you're like, that's the shittiest scam I've ever seen in my life.
Right. Lloyd, I kind of, this is more Care Bear, I guess, my opinion here, but, I think,
another RPer take.
No, yeah, hot RPer take, yeah. I think there's one thing that we all forget in the internet age is that behind all these keyboards, we're all just people, right?
Right.
And I think we get lost in like the humanity of it, and these developers are putting their heart and soul into this game. And so like, when people, go on and they put a copy pasta onto the forums about how bad the game is and everything, and don't give any constructive criticism, don't say what they're liking about it, all these different things, all you're doing is like demoralizing the people who are literally working day in, day out to try to give us a game we want to play. I'm not saying you have to congratulate them on shit, but, celebrate what you're liking and say, hey, I didn't like how this was. Have you tried this? Because those things are going to make it so they're not feeling like they're absolutely hated and scum of the earth. It's going to give them it's going to give them some... Yeah. It's going to inspire them to keep going, So I always just say, remember, everybody's human. We're all here to have fun. Even the developers want to eventually have fun. So, like, just take a moment before, going after people. So
I said we were going to speed run through that and not hit any of that drama topics, but we fucking got on it again.
Thogli is a dwarf. Also dwarves. Be nice to dwarves too.
Only if they can front flip. If they can't front flip, then they're weak.
Lloyd, no.
I'm just kidding. I love Thogli. Yeah, I said we were going to speed run through that and not touch any of that, but we ended up touching it. So we touched the red button. Anyways, I want to get back on the Firebrand stuff. Please, Firebrand topics in chat. Any questions that you had for it? We had Anduin. Anduin, what did you play? Archetype.
I played fighter with a spear.
With a spear?
With a spear, the pokey stick.
I did not see the spear on any of the weapon skill trees in the phases.
Well, you can see it right now on the screen. You can see me turning around like an idiot. And
oh yeah, you're on the left side there.
Yeah, left side.
So, Dragon question: did you feel small? Both Daedalus and Anduin.
Look on the screen. Everybody is tiny next to this dragon. Like, even Brian played a dwarf, and when he goes up next to the dragon, he's literally as tall as the foot. Like, it's a massive dragon. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The scale of this game, like when you have him look over at the Steel Bloom Citadel at the wall's massive. I love that. I love when in MMOs you feel small, you feel insignificant, because you feel that more epic when you conquer these huge things, when you take a castle, when you climb that mountain, those things,
He said, I'm speaking more to what feelings fighting the dragon. Did it invoke fear into your mortal hearts? I didn't do the RP worthy of that, to be honest, but that was very epic writing, and I just said it dumbly. Dumbly.
It was badass. Like, there was times when it would strafe its little fire run, and you'd just be like, well, shit, there went like over half my health. So like, it felt tense at times. Or as we're watching the stream here, like over half the raid died at one point. And
are you telling me you didn't have GM hacks on?
No, only Steven did, but that's because Steven tries his best.
He wants to be a good cameraman, Anduin. Come on.
Nobody talks shit on Steven this stream. He was literally a cameraman. That's why they had another cleric in the party.
No bully Steven. He tries his best, okay?
Steven always does Steven things, and that's okay, because he's he's being his authentic self. And
I think
that's-
he's following a bit. I think he knows what he's doing when he does that shit.
Jan, you are
totally
correct.
does.
I charge the dragon at 5% health because I believe in my teammates. I believe my healers, even though they'll be like, fuck that guy, they're going to heal my ass through it. And you know what they did? They did do it. So, and I still got to clap them cheeks. So it was a great time. It was a good thing. You know, it was a blast. I had fun. Daedalus, did you have fun? Or did you hate it?
Oh, I loved every minute of it. From the moment that dragon flew in, I was like, oh shit, it's on.
Yep.
I mean, like, and honestly, it's like, you just don't, and I think that's something that I feel like I need to communicate over and over for folks that have been talking about this fight and saying, oh, it looked easy. There was no tension. There was no this. There was no cinematic moments. Blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. I mean, I was in it. Like the first time I saw that dragon fly up and strafe with fire, I was like, I was just in. I had chills. It was so immersive.
Mhm.
And the first time, like he landed, I don't know if you could really get it on the screen when you were watching it, but when he landed and he let out that roar, the screen shook.
Mhm.
And that was like, wow, they're really setting this up. Now, granted, yeah, there's probably more they can do to enhance that tension. But for the first time seeing this, it was fantastic, right?
Mhm.
To be able to be there. And even like being on the fringe in a more ranged group, you still had mechanics to deal with because it wasn't just focusing in a small area. You had the fire breath to deal with. You didn't know which way he was coming from.
Right.
You had stuff dropping on the ground. You had to run to start DPSing the ads that were coming up. There was so much going on in this fight that, you know, it was just very like immersive. There was like a sense of adrenaline, like compounded by the fact that I was seeing it for the first time. I think overall it was just a really kind of solid experience, and it was, in my opinion, I think it was a good baseline for, let's just say, like a mid-level boss, right? Because we know like they're talking about 50 being the max, right, at launch. So we're talking about a level 25 boss here. It did feel like for an open world boss, it hit all the right things. Like if I compare it to an open world boss at air quotes end game for say like a WoW, that shit's boring, right? It's literally a hit point sponge. You get enough DPS, it's down in like a minute, right?
Mhm.
I think the time to kill here was perfect because it gave you an opportunity to see an ebb and flow of fighting that you don't normally get in a world boss fight that I've experienced.
All right, well, I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer here. I might be your doomer. No, I'm just kidding.
Trash.
I like I know that it was a showcase. I know that it's an alpha. Things that I would like to see in the future with the opening is that he doesn't just stand wait for you to party up and stuff like that. I want that fight to happen immediately. I want that screen shake, him to block your path, and if you try to walk out of that aggro range, he gets aggroed. You know, like that's the kind of feeling I want.
Well, isn't that the plan though, Lloyd? Like
I have no idea. I'm just saying what I would like to see. I didn't see it.
Okay.
I would like to see that.
Okay, so the plan is to put your fears aside, Lloyd, you know, is that these world bosses and stuff, when they come down, if they aren't fought by adventurers, they go find something to fight. So
that'd be
the
great.
plan is they might go after nodes and stuff. So if people don't deal with these threats, they might go fuck up things that people actually care about. So, you know, that's why if you notice an event, you might want to get involved in it. So
that is actually pretty awesome, actually. No, I didn't think about it on that level, but yeah, if that's the intended plan for these world bosses and these events, yeah, keep doing your thing, Intrepid. Keep doing that thing.
The dragon also has a blep. If you before the fight started, when it's sitting there, its tongue sticks out of its mouth and just hangs out for a little bit.
I saw him eating some skulls on the ground. That was pretty immersive. Oh my god,
he's a chill dude.
Immersive.
Firebrand's the mayor, man. He's a good guy.
He's the mayor. Oh boy. I want to talk so much. I can't. Firebrand 2024, true. So the other thing was somebody said, was there enough tail whips and claw attacks? I think the only other constructive criticism I could have that I saw in the fights for mechanics, from my perspective, from viewer on the outside, I'll ask you guys here shortly, was that I would like the claw swipes to either like stagger or snare, and then the tail whip to actually knock back anybody in the back, make them give them the tripped condition, and then them having to stand up and stuff. I think that those would be some interesting added mechanics to this fight that doesn't really change the difficulty of it, doesn't change a lot of mechanics, but would be really immersive and could change the tide of battle in a PvX situation. That would be my opinion. What about you guys? Were there any other? Were the claw attacks good? Was the tail whips good for you? Were there any other mechanics that you wanted added that you saw?
I mean, I didn't really kind of experience the melee side of it because being ranged, but I do feel like in terms of where I was positioned, I mean, while I still had to deal with mechanics, it didn't feel as intense as it was in melee range. So I would like to see even something like in reverse to what you were saying, is he does this like breath in when he's about to breathe fire, and it kind of pulls you in and like knocks you off your feet. So then you have to
cool idea.
You have to scramble to get up before you get your face melted. I mean, I think that would be great. I mean, I think definitely more control aspects would have made this fight harder. I'm not going to say it was easy, but it was definitely like you got into a rhythm. And I think, and I go like kind of both ways on this. I think the amount of battle resing we were able to do did feel like it was an ebb and flow of tension. So at first you're like, oh crap, I think we're gonna wipe, and then we have some heroes like all our different clerics that were doing reses to help the team out. It felt like we were kind of having like a tug of war with the boss, and I think making that more tense, I think would have been good too. So I think like some sort of pull-in mechanic. I think the knockdown is a great idea. I think also like even if he like raises up in the air and roars and then like stuns everybody for a few minutes before he does his breath, that also makes you think from a gamer's perspective, even when he's up in the air, what kind of positioning do I need to have relative to where he is in order to not get, barbecued by his fire breath.
You just made me think of something real quick before I ask Anduin. You said the dragon roar, and we already have the fighter shout. What if the dragon just had his own dragon roar that basically affects the same way, where the lowers the attack speed on all of the raid party members in a larger radius because of the roar? Like, those are types of mechanics that they're already scripted. They just need to add it and change the radius for the dragon. Like some of this stuff is easy to add. Some of these mechanics are really easy to add because they already exist. So I think that stuff is really cool. I think they can add it easy. They can like look at these things, and maybe the elder dragon has something like that, but maybe the young adult dragon doesn't. So Anduin, from a melee perspective, how did you feel about the mechanics? Was there anything you liked, didn't like, wanted to add?
So, like, while everything was being choreographed, and it's very visual when you're far away because of the size of the dragon, when you're up there smacking its ass, with a spear, it's kind of hard to see what's being choreographed. So it felt good to have like a shot caller far away to go, hey, he's about to do this. So I'd be like, oh, okay, I should move away.
Okay, I leave now.
Yeah, I go no. But like to what Sir Onsington asked about, or stated earlier about, like, was there any way to decrease damage when tail swings and stuff like that were happening? Yeah, you could dodge roll out of the way. You had a blocking mechanic that would lessen some of the damage. You know, it's not like a complete negate, but it would take a chunk of damage for you. And it would take like your stamina. Overall, I'd like to see more, stuns, more knockdowns, staggers, things that make it, I don't like instant death mechanics. Like, I don't want to get hit by a fireball and die immediately, but I would like that fireball to make it so I can die right after. Like, it lights me on fire and knocks me over, and if I don't react in a certain way, I'm gonna die. That's what I like in my boss mechanics. I don't like instant death ones, but I like that if you do fuck up, there's a chance you can recover. That's what I want out of mechanics. Because I think those are the most fun ones, right? Because the ones where instant death, it's such a cop out, right? Like, it's not a good mechanic, because all it does is your party either wipes or it doesn't,
Right.
So
to counter that with a theoretical situation, because maybe some of the people from Jamie's stream know this, but what if you are not level 20? What if you are level 15 or level 10 and you get one shot?
Then you should be a bug on the windshield. So
okay. And then to add to that, what type of gear did you have? Did you guys have like a chance to like pick your gear? Did they just give you like whatever like standard gear?
We had I think it was either level 15 or level 20 gear, but we were all leveled to level 20. Okay. So what Daedalus, was it level 20 gear?
I don't remember the level on it, but it was rare gear, so like think of it like blues, essentially.
Right. So like we were all relatively geared, right? Like we weren't going in with nothing. So I think overall we were at the level you're supposed to be to fight Firebrand. Where, like,
I think that's important context for the audience as well. Like, something that maybe they didn't cover in stream because it's a showcase, but like in terms of power level, that's probably right on cue, is basically what I like to see. Yeah, level 20 white gear from the merchant. Go get wrecked. Like, yeah, I mean, and you guys are supposed to kill Firebrand, right? Like, you're not. It's a showcase. Imagine you all just happen to show up and just get wiped.
Yeah.
Wait, quick question. Did you get wiped and they reshot it or no?
Oh. Is Lloyd dead?
Hello?
I think the stream...
Oh, no?
Looks like it froze for me.
And that's how I really feel about spears.
Sorry, what the fuck were we talking about, by the way, guys? Welcome back. I have no idea what happened. My internet went out. So that's pretty cool, right?
Yeah. Talking about spears and,
Yeah, spears and
spears.
Spears.
How amazing.
Uh-oh.
Oh boy, we back.
Oh, no, we're good. Thank you guys for sticking around. Really appreciate you. Yeah, I don't know what happened. I had to reset my modem randomly. Maybe somebody hit like a power thing here in Vegas. Things happen. But anyways, thank you guys for staying. Appreciate it. How did you like your spear, Anduin? Was it big? Was it strong? Did it do damage?
It was big. It was strong. It was beautiful. It was a big, beautiful spear. Nice. I think so. To clarify to everyone, I did something. I took an L for everyone. The spear I used was called the Rusty Spear, which means it was for level 1 people. So I did not get a weapon that had any stat buffs, but I did it so I could talk about it to you people. Okay. I sacrificed my gameplay for you guys so I could talk about a spear. So let me tell you, it has, like all weapons, they all have like a attack pattern they do, like a slash, a jab, or whatever.
The spear attack combo that is in the game currently is, if you're familiar with Elder Scrolls Online Templars, it's like a puncturing jab kind of multi-poke attack. And then there's like an overhead swing where it's kind of jabbing from above. And then there's like a sideways slash with it. So, it's interesting. I did.
Damn, minus 10,000 DKP. Good thing he's the guild leader. You can do what he wants.
I know, right? Fupo, these are Anduin fun bucks. That's what we run in our guild. Instead of DKP, it's Anduin fun bucks. But
Air Force Base?
Yeah. But like the whole thing about it is, obviously what was in the weapon use for it was it has like critical. So with how you spec into each of the weapons and stuff and their skill trees, each weapon will have its own flavor. So you can design your weapon like skill buffs, like the passive buffs, based on what that weapon is. So like, let's say you have a great sword. You might have a tree that is about overhead swings that, do a critical chance to, sunder armor. Or it could have a vampirism passive that every time you do X damage, you get X health back or X mana back. So, that's kind of how that works with the weapon level up. But yes, the current one, it just has like a skill tree just for critical upgrades. But that will change with time. So it was a two-handed spear.
Everything is a work in progress.
Yeah, everything is a work in progress,
Not a complete finished game, something alpha. Anyways.
Yeah, so
did it have poison damage since it's a rusty old iron spear?
I wish, and I'm actually going to push Steven about that, is that they should have a poison damage for like rusted weapons. Like it doesn't even have to be a huge damage. It'd just be immersive if it did like a one point of damage for poison over time, be hilarious. So
what's actually funny is like League does these things as well, where like, if Kha'Zix hits Rengar, they get like 1 damage extra, and like it doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things, but it's just kind of funny little lore things and like little funny stuff. Like Jax can go into the river, and like if you do like on one specific skin, if you like do his taunt, he starts fishing, and if you fish in the river, you can like after like 10 seconds pick up a gold coin. Like all these stupid little things. I think it'd be fun if Intrepid does stuff like that. It's kind of funny. Where they're basically inconsequential, but they're just there to appease the player base and whatnot.
Right. Adestra asked if it worked well with the fighter skills. So like some of the fighter skills are like active abilities that buff up like how fast you hit. And when I did trigger those, I would hit faster than I'm already hitting faster with the spear. So yeah, I could see you definitely playing and being like the Viper from Game of Thrones, with the spear.
Nice.
Just having a bunch of fast attacks and a lot of agility and moving around. It absolutely is a fighter weapon. I'm looking forward to see what a one-handed spear with a shield, how that plays. Because I'm hoping that you'll be able to use this that type of build and actually do DPS. Because a sword still does damage when you have a shield. It just means you're not as quick, but it should still do some damage. So I'm hoping that they have some versatility when it comes to one-handed weapons with that, especially the spear.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
And Traxev, you said, did they tell you it would be under NDA? I think when you're going to fight the dragon and be on a showcase, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's going to be on stream. But did they tell you that your verbal NDA was going to be released at some point, and that's why you chose the spear, or did you just?
So I look at it like this. Usually when things are on live stream, yeah, they drop the NDA, but Steven also has the opinion that if something pops up on live stream, we can talk about what's on there.
Mhm.
We just can't talk about what's not on there.
Gotcha.
So, you know, for example, if the NDA verbal NDA wasn't dropped and Daedalus and I were on the live stream, Daedalus and I can go, yes, we were on the live stream. Yes, we used these weapons. We did these things.
Gotcha.
So basically, as long as it's on the live stream, we can talk about it to a surface level, you know, like ankle
Right.
deep.
Whatever you can see, everybody saw on the stream, we could talk about. Yeah.
Right. But
Okay.
like me talking about the you know, the passives, the skill tree, stuff like that, because that was technically in my experience in the in that I can talk about that. So
Gotcha.
but I can't talk about all the other things that are in A1, right?
Mhm.
So
Another question that came in was, what are both of your thoughts on the infinite battle reses? I thought there were times when the raid was going to wipe and then they get everyone up. Mine is, we're going to ignore Steven battle resing people because he only res like 3 or 4 people throughout the entire raid. And there was definitely more than that went down. On the infinite battle resing, I don't know if either of you played, you guys both didn't play cleric, but did like the comms say if there was a battle res on cooldown or if something like that happened? Because I assume you guys are talking to each other in a call and able to like communicate things. Like, did you hear things from clerics in this showcase where they're like, I don't have mana, I need mana, et cetera, et cetera? Like, these are the types of things I think the community really wants to hear.
It does take a chunk of mana, that's for sure. You know, I think from what I heard was it almost takes like a tenth of your mana, if not more, to raise someone. And in the middle of battle, if you're not having bards dancing around you, singing songs to get your mana up, you're going to be screwed because the mana regen is slow. So you gotta watch them resources. I think there was actually, or there is supposed to be a cooldown later on. I don't know if there was one during that fight though. So
yeah, I don't recall there being a cooldown. I mean, honestly, like I think you have to look at it in the grand scheme of things. Like if you have battle reses that are costing a lot of mana, you're making it as a healer, you're making a choice. I don't think you need to compound that with, I mean, I don't mind a cooldown, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like the WoW choice of you only have 2 battle reses or however many like in raid. I never liked that mechanic because I feel like in that situation, that's a choice as a healer. You're still making a choice in the raid per se, but it's based off of a cooldown versus based off of the cost to mana and the potential.
It also takes a long time to cast.
Yeah, exactly. And you're very vulnerable at that point. Now,
it takes your heals away. Like you're not healing when that's happening. So it's like a 5-second to 8-second cast for it to happen. That's a long time, especially if you're getting rocked, like, you know.
Yeah, Fupo brings up a point in chat as well. He said battle res is something that we might want to think about as well when there's PvP during these types of fights. Like, there was no PvP going on. Another thing I really wanted to kind of think about is, like, your positioning around the dragon isn't going to be the same as it was during the live stream. There are going to be 2 separate groups that are kind of bunched up that the dragon could attack and that you have to, like, you know, juggle aggro. You have to also think about, like, am I going to be able to battle res somebody in that moment because their fighter could dive onto me? Like, do I leave them down? Do I keep my uptime going? Like, all these things could happen, plus your mana management as well. Yeah, there's a lot of other things that people might need to think about when there's PvX on the line, and obviously this is a showcase for PvE. Do you guys have thoughts on, like, do you think for future episodes that or future updates that Intrepid may want to kind of like show a PVX with one of these bosses, or would you rather them just keep doing what they're doing in a very nice controlled state? What would the feel like be for you?
I do want to see PVX. If they can balance out the parties and make it so the two sides are as equal as they can be. I would like to see how two raids hitting each other while also fighting Firebrand or fighting Tumok or whoever is the raid boss. I want to see that because I think that'll give people a better understanding of what is Steven's goal here, when it comes to that,
Yeah, I think the community also was wondering that.
Right.
Daedalus, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would make more sense and give people the right context if there was PVX showcases. And kind of, before, Fupo mentioned it, that was kind of where I was going to go next is we're not seeing the whole picture in this situation. So while, yes, it seemed easier to have, multiple battle reses without really kind of having a limit on them, there's other dynamics that are going to come into play. And that's probably part of the reason as well. You maybe didn't have as much complexity in the mechanics. That's not to say that there isn't room to add something like that. I think we've already talked about that, making the encounter more interesting and increasing the tension. But I do feel like having a dynamic, and we're just like spitballing, hey, what if another group was there? What if 3 or 4 groups were there? I mean, what kind of chaos would that ensue when you've got 4 separate raids vying for this boss? Because whatever it drops is going to give you something super powerful that you want to get for your guild or your playing group, right? So there's just so many different things that could potentially occur in a PVX situation where you're going to kind of see that. And like as you get into the game, and I'm hoping, to your point, Lloyd, that we do see these in the showcases, you're going to see that the complexity isn't just necessarily limited to the PvE part of it. This is a PVX game. This is kind of why I was talking about earlier. You have like folks maybe making commentary here when their experience in a PVX situation is not very like don't have that level of experience. So like playing into that dynamic is going to create a level of unpredictability that people don't really have a sense of yet because we haven't seen it. I think the more we see that, the more people are really going to get like, this is not what I'm used to as kind of an environment or an MMO that I've played before. Yeah, there are other PVX MMOs out there, but I mean, at this point, one of this size and scale I have not seen. Right.
Yeah,
and so
there's also go ahead, Anduin.
Well, just a quick thing back to the cleric question. A lot of abilities you can walk slowly with, or you can go like just they're instant. The res actually plants you. You're do locked. Not move for that 5 to 8 seconds that you're casting. So
there's also not a lot of those abilities. I think the only other one like that is like the mage lightning strike, right? Like I don't think there's many other ones that really lock you in place like that. Maybe the fighter shout, if I remember correctly, but there's a lot of these things that they do take into consideration for big abilities. They lock you in place, and that was feedback very, very early on, and that is what they've stuck to. So I think when we think about big abilities, you're either really slow moving or you're locked in place, and these things will be a detriment to you if you do it at the wrong time. Another thing that was mentioned in chat was that it may not be showcase ready, or things may not be balanced. Like obviously they're not balanced right now. But A2's right around the corner. Like you guys are going to see me on stream. I'm going to be doing PVXing stuff. I will be interacting with this stuff in an unbalanced state, to remind you guys. I think the community knows, or at least most of the community knows at this point, that a lot of this is like unbalanced. And though we pick apart things, we do like speed 0.25 times and watch cooldowns and ability damages and stuff like that. I think the community still has a valid reason to give feedback on balance on what they would like to expect in the future. I think just disregarding it and saying it's an alpha or it's not balanced is kind of just deflecting valid feedback. So I hope like when people say, oh, this doesn't look like it does a lot of damage, or this doesn't look like it's using enough resource management, I really hope people don't just like shoot each other down and be like, well, it's only an alpha, of course it's unbalanced. Like, yes, of course it is, but this is where we would like to see these things for these types of abilities. This is like the direction us as a player base can like give feedback and be like, this looks like it feels good, or maybe that's a little too OP, you know, like that's kind of things as well. And then Fupo says, think hands-on feedback from A2 will be much more valuable than doing a showcase. Very true. Very, very true. So it'll actually be in our hands then.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that, because a lot of this is like, I mean, the way I refer to it, and it's not to discount anyone's point of view, but there is a lot of like backseat driving happening right now in terms of feedback, and I do feel like there is. I mean, I'm very happy that they allowed us to talk about our experience here so we can give some context, but I still feel even we as PI testers in this situation did not even get the full picture. Like, we saw one vertical slice of what this fight will look like without a lot of different things. And I totally agree with you, Lloyd. Like, at the end of the day, like when people ask me about certain things, usually my response is needs more testing. Like the mana, like the one that comes to mind is like, what did you think about the mana usage? Right? I mean, my opinion is it needs to be tuned, but that needs more testing. And I say that because, hey, I played a support class in this fight, and I don't want to be irrelevant. So I know that there's got to be a bunch of different levers that the team has to play with and get enough data on to say, hey, can we make the Bard relevant but not OP in a situation where mana usage is paramount, like a big fight that might be longer than what you're normally used to in world boss fights in other games.
Right. I think that's really important to really talk about, is like saying that it needs more feedback, needs more testing is valid feedback as well. Like, yeah, I didn't get the finger and the wind in the air type of like, is that spot on? I don't know. Like I couldn't really tell if there was wind going east or west, you know, like it I felt wind, but that's it. Like, so I think some of our expectations are rushed. I can tell that from other games where we read patch notes and we go, oh, that does absolutely nothing. That's like a +2 to attack damage. That's so silly. Why would that ever enter the game? And then like literally it ends up breaking that specific thing that it affects, and you're like, oh shit, like it was just such a minor tweak and it really changed everything about that one thing, and you're just like, oh, okay, well, now I understand that. So like the community is fast to react, and I think that's just kind of the times that we live in, is we are fast to react to these types of things. And actually getting our hands on testing and testing to see if it works is probably the best way to do things, but obviously that's not the times we live in. We are going to experience this type of feedback early, and maybe a lot of that feedback gets wrong a lot of the times as well. So I do know. One more other thing that I wanted to ask both of you is archetype buffing and nerfing. A lot of people like to spend a lot of their time on their archetype, their class, and it feels bad when your class goes from really OP to nerfed out of your mind, you know? So like, I think everybody shares that sentiment with you, Daedalus, where you're like, I want my archetype. I want my class to be strong. I want it to feel good, but I don't want it to be OP because if you over nerf my class, I'm gonna feel really shitty. What class am I planning on playing? I don't know yet. Honestly, it's gonna be whatever feels good. It's either gonna be fighter, ranger, rogue, mage, probably in there. I might even throw in a bard because bard looks sick.
Don't lie to yourself. You're playing rogue.
What do you mean? I like playing DPS. I like playing high mobility things, and I like to use a bow. I like to do all those things. So
that's a lot. Basically every class.
Basically every class, which is why I have no fucking clue. You know, so like we'll figure it out when the time comes and I get to test everything and look at numbers and stuff like that. So it'll be a lot of fun. I will be playing A2 a lot. Anduin, what do you think about like how would you go about archetype and class strength, or would you like rather than buff and nerf around like items and gear and stuff like that?
I mean, so you know, one of the big complaints I can have, for example, of over buffing or nerfing or stuff in the ground is ESO had a lot of it with the Templar class, for example. There was a skill called puncturing jabs, and it was like super overtuned for like the first couple of years of the game, where you could literally spam this one ability and win most duels in PvP, and that's all you needed to cast and a few dots. And then they nerfed it pretty heavily, so the main skill that everybody used as a Templar was suddenly a lot weaker, so they had to switch and change metas and stuff. But you know, for a lot of people, I think that you know, it was difficult for them to change out. So
that was my ranger or my Nightblade shortbow meta.
Yep.
My one shot meta.
The shit out of that, yeah.
Yeah, I stopped playing ESO after that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie.
Well, and that's my thing. Is it does feel bad when you overly nerf or overly buff things to, you know, in the sake of balancing. I think really what it comes down to is, you know, figuring out how to balance the stats, how to balance out the gear that is coming out. You know, because I mean. Also, I think a big part of it is figuring out how to avoid, because again, ESO had a big issue with this, avoiding builds that make it so you can have one person versus, you know, 40 people, and that one person can kill everybody else and survive thousands and thousands of damage all at one time. If you can adjust abilities and make it so they, you know, there's a limit to how much they can stack, how much they can build off of each other, I think you're going to help the game go far. And then figuring also out time to kill. You know, their goal of having it be about 20 to 30 second fights for time to kill if you're really, really targeting someone, that's good. I mean, that's where it should be, right? Unless, you know, you have two paladins fighting each other, and that, you know, we all know how long those duels go for. But, you know, I think it's important to have or respect the time to kill always, right? So if you have one guy versus 40 guys, that one guy, he might have some cooldown buffs that can make him survive, you know, a minute or more. But he should die if he's sitting there out there for a while. So
Yeah, I'm going to maybe take a different tack to this. Like, and I feel like the most important thing to start with when it comes to balancing is make sure you've got a strong point of view on what the class fantasy should be. Because I feel like my best example of that is WoW's Paladin. Like, if you look at where it was in vanilla WoW and where it is now, it's so different. And I know a lot of things happened in between that period, but I felt like even though I was like gung-ho about playing a Paladin and I ground my face into the dirt to make it to 60 in vanilla, I always felt like they didn't really nail the class fantasy, except in one respect, which is like one of their class quests. And so, from my perspective, if you have a good point of view, a very I would say a very clear point of view on what the class fantasy should be, that does help you get a good baseline for balance. It's not a silver bullet, obviously, but it does help you kind of gauge where a class should fall in terms of balance. And the other thing too is one thing that I think a lot of folks aren't going to be necessarily used to, is they're very used to, well, I want to make sure combat is fair 1v1. That's not how they're balancing, the classes.
Right.
They're balancing it
I have a
based on group
counterpoint.
content. Yeah,
Go ahead. No,
Roy.
no. Go ahead. Finish your thing, but I have a counterpoint to that.
Yeah, and I feel like that the fact that you're going to have counters and you're going to have classes that are just generally going to be better at countering some classes, I think that's a good thing, because it doesn't rely on the one-man hero that we've been talking about, like being the person that pretty much like saves everybody all the time. I like to have that dynamic. I like people to have an opportunity to shine and work together. And that's kind of where I feel like that's where I would like the balance to start. And I agree with what everybody's saying too, is really be careful about the heavy nerves. Look at it. What can we do to, and I want to say level the playing field, that's not it, but what can we do to balance in such a way where you're making small changes, and as opposed to nerfing, is looking what you can do to buff people reasonably, right? Because you don't want to just keep buffing and buffing and buffing, and then
Because then you get the power creep.
Exactly. You get a power creep, and then everything becomes trivial. But you do need to kind of think through like how you get that baseline in such a way where you've got the right levers in place. I'm hoping, like, by early conversations with the devs when we were at PAX, they talked about like how their pipeline was working and what they were trying to do, kind of build that pipeline for the abilities. I hope that's still kind of something that they've kind of fully built out now, so it makes those adjustments very easy to kind of do with good data, to really keep, again, kind of I would say a consistent baseline where you're not getting something so out of whack that it's painful when it gets nerfed.
Right. Boy, I gotta keep both you and Anduin on a leash. We keep on having these long points. It's good. We're all professional yappers. That's what we are. Well, that's what we do here. But the counterpoint that I wanted to say is like, yeah, you're not balancing for a 1v1 situation. And I'm not advocating for Intrepid to do that, because we do like this paper, rock, scissors type of gameplay. The boulder, parchment, shears is what I like to call it. My counterpoint is make sure that each archetype has its own agency. If a tank can't tank, there's something wrong. If a fighter is just rampaging through the field, or is too squishy, or is not drain tanking, maybe there's something wrong there. If a mage doesn't have the ability to like outplay something, they're not good. They're not going to be like very, very good in the open world either, from like protecting themselves from ganks. We know ganking is going to happen. We know griefing is going to happen. The reason why we know this is because they haven't turned off the idea of no PvP in the open world. Like griefing will happen. They obviously are going to be trying to design around that. And that's a point. But my point is that each and every archetype needs to have its own agency, to where even if it doesn't win the 1v1, it needs to be able to escape that 1v1. It needs to be able to outplay its opponent somehow. So that's kind of my counterpoint to that. A mage doesn't have to beat a fighter, but if played properly, maybe they can escape the fighter, like that. These are the types of mechanics that I'm thinking about that like gives things agency, or if they're allowed to be on the ranged and just be like an artillery mage that maybe has 0 mobility and can one-shot the fighter before it gets to them. Maybe that's something that they can do to outplay. I think this the archetype in 64 class system has immense potential for these types of like big hype moments to outplay your opponents, to change your play style. And speaking about changing your play style, there is something on the forums right now, which is storytelling with like your archetypes and how all this stuff is happening within the game and your archetypes and whatnot. So I've posted that at the forum link inside the chat. The Bard itself had certain types of like storytelling and playstyles. Daedalus, how did you feel about like the Bard and like, does the archetype really showcase what a Bard is, or would you like to see more from it?
And I think that was coming back to my point around class fantasy. I think one thing that I really liked about the Bard showcase, like the abilities and the utility aside, it nailed the class fantasy. And I remember when Steven initially talked about what he wanted to do with the Bard, and I couldn't really visualize it. So he's like, well, Bards can dance, Bards can use instruments, Bards can do this. And it's like, okay, I'm not saying how that's going to play out. I totally got it when he showcased the Bard. So I feel like from a class fantasy standpoint, from a utility standpoint, from a kit standpoint, I think the Bard is on the right track. I don't think it's all the way there yet. Like I said, there's still some more testing, to be done in comparison to the other classes, in my opinion, to kind of level them up, to kind of get on that same class fantasy level. But I do feel like the Bard is really on the right track, and kind of along the lines of the dev discussion too. One of the things that I really liked about Star Wars: The Old Republic was that class quest that you did. You had a mentor, you kind of follow that storyline through. I would really like to see something, not necessarily like in the single player thing in an MMO, but that level of story and engagement that kind of carries you throughout your leveling experience, to be able to kind of see how your archetype fits in. It could be, having a mentor. It could be joining a particular, profession, profession guild, right? There could be a lot of different ways you can go with that to make yourself, again, not this hero complex, but be part of the world. And that's how I feel like, the Bard could be integrated. Again, there's so many possibilities there. I just really hope, again, being really rooted in class fantasy, they try to do something like that to engage all the different archetypes in that kind of same way.
Yeah,
let's kind of have them be part of the world.
I'm gonna let you have your piece, Anduin. But in the office hours for this topic, basically what I said was, the Bard currently, like, I love the fact that it can dance. I love the fact that it has like melodies, it can sing, it has its own instrument, it has like the storytelling with the sagas and stuff like that. But what I feel is lacking is like the Bard archetype feels like it, and a lot of the primary archetypes feel like they're just trying to embody the entire class, the entire fantasy that it is trying to deliver. And what I think is missing out are like the really niche like play styles that you could like really delve into. Maybe this happens with the secondary archetypes, but like in terms of like the Bard, I'm like, where's my Arcanist who like has like playing cards and they're like magic playing cards? Where's my juggler that has like throwing knives? Where's my Bard that has storytelling that buffs like my party? There's like singing, there's like the artist that like does ink on the ground and stuff like that. Like, I feel like the Bard could have so many different fantasies, but the playstyles seem very broad without like being able to pick types of playstyles like that. And like we have like the fire mage, the ice mage, lightning mage, like elemental mage, arcane mage, shadow mage. Like we have all these different types that could possibly happen with the secondary archetypes and augments and stuff like that. But this is probably the part where I feel like maybe character and class fantasy is maybe divulging. And maybe it's just too much work. Maybe that's just way too much scope for Intrepid. But
maybe they should just give up, Lloyd. It's over.
It's over.
Cancel the project.
But like 10 years down the line, these are the types of things that I'm looking for. Like it doesn't have to happen at launch, but like 10 years down the line, I would love to see stuff like this being implemented. Anduin, what about you? What do you feel about like the storytelling of like your archetypes? If not the bard, something else. What do you think?
I really, and I've said this before to a lot of people, is what I would like to see is something from Lost Ark, where when you come into the game, you're just some random dude, and then
it wasn't me that brought up Lost Ark. I just want to say that.
Right. And it's the only thing I actually enjoy from this game. So Lloyd, there's one thing I like about Lost Ark, and it's that starting thing where you come in and you're just some dude and you try out each of the classes and you get to see the abilities, and that's where you choose what you want to be, right? For class wise. I want to see something similar in Ashes, that when you're coming through the portals, you like have a vision with the gods, and basically you're like, which one will you be? And what I would like to see is the abilities be tied to different types of essence manipulation.
Yeah.
So essence is magic, right? So what I would really like to see how the classes are just a different type of essence manipulation. Like you have blood magic and clerical type healing stuff, and it's just, how does your essence come into the world, right? That's how I think they could tell the story well and have it be immersive and explain, why are there all these people that have tank skills? Why are there all these people that have fighter skills? Stuff like that. That's the best route they can go, I believe. That would be immersive and not feel too meta. You know what I mean? Like It doesn't feel like you're just, it's not shoehorned in there.
Right.
Yeah. I do have one point here, Lloyd. Sorry to interrupt. Because Exiled Ranger actually mentioned something in chat that I thought was super interesting. And it's kind of how I'm envisioning how augmentation will work in some form. And he said, I would like to see consumables for bards that you can find in the open world. So you wander across a written song, a poem, a piece of lore, etc. The item you find can be used as a one-time consumable you can use to buff your class. And I feel like that is one really great vehicle to be able to build out augmentations. It's augmentations you find. You might need to seek out a mentor. You might need to work with a social organization to get like some piece of lore or some item to help you, unlock an augmentation for your class. That's like totally how I feel like they can make that, immersive. I think very similar to what you said, Anduin. Just like one more point, Lloyd, and I promise I'll shut up.
You're good.
There was like a showcase recently on Dune Awakening, and how they have you choose your class and your background is you have like that scene from Dune where the Reverend Mother is, pushing that poison stick against your neck and saying, now, like, who is your mentor and like what would you like to do? And it was like a very immersive way. So I do agree with you. It would be nice as you're passing through the portal to be the point, or you're starting down your path and potentially kicking off your class quest.
Okay.
Right. And, I also would like to see them add in that you choose the background you had on Sanctus or in the Underrealm. Like if you were a noble, maybe you get plus to intellect, or if you were a warrior, you get plus to strength. Like I really want to see that when you are coming through the portals, it's not a blank slate for everyone stat wise. Like people have their background that they're coming from. Obviously, a lot of people will use this as a way to, what's the meta? And they'll be like, I don't care that I'm a warrior. I just want the strength, But I do think on an immersion side of things, it would be cool to see that, that you have a background to why do you have these stats, like what were you on Sanctus, and how are you bringing that over to Verra?
Yeah, to that point, there's a very famous quote says everybody is born equally. But the quote doesn't stop there. The quote ends up going, and it says, but after birth there are inequalities that happen. And so the background part is like, yeah, you have a past life. You're from Sanctus. You are entering this world. There is inequality between us. We're not just getting born from a blank slate like what you're talking about. So I think that would be a really interesting idea. And maybe the backgrounds, first of all, the backgrounds are fucking sick. I love that idea, is that it's not, you're not getting a racial, you're getting a background. So you can be any race, you could be, there is no faction, right, that you join. You just have your background and you have your benefits, and that's it. And you can choose that. And along with not just archetype fantasy, but also like player character fantasy as well. I really hope that the immersion and the ability to choose these things they're balanced in a way to be perfectly equal. Like weapon choice should not be a meta. Background should not be a meta. Like these things will kill player fantasy and will kill character fantasy if you just make something strong and now you have to come up with a reason why your character is using this weapon, even though he's not, very versatile in this weapon in your backstory for RP. Or like if you're a power gamer, like it just doesn't feel good to me. So I really hope that when they do take things like the skill tree or the backgrounds, that they are perfectly balanced and that you can actually choose, because otherwise, you're just going to end up in this big old pigeonholed mess with this kind of thing. And it's hard to say perfectly balanced. It's especially when you think about like all the different abilities that are going to be in the game and stuff like that. Different like a weapon attack speeds with like weapon finishers and stuff like that could happen. Like there's so many levers and stuff that could happen with that. That's my wish, is that you don't kill character fantasy, you don't kill player fantasy by making things strong or weak, or just even inadvertently doing so.
I think that really resonates with me, because I want to see that be able to do your class fantasy, be able to choose your stuff. But in the same line, I would also like to see where if you are choosing to go with an axe, like a one-handed axe instead of a one-handed sword, have it do cleave damage or have it do more, whatever, a specialty. I'm not saying that, if you want to be a mage, you have to always use a staff or a wand. But like give it where each of the individual things, like, your one-handed weapons, the different types do different things, but have it where you can adjust them, where if you want to have it do more crit, you can spec into that. If you want to have it do vampirism type stuff, it can spec into that. That's what I want.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, along those lines, I guess my point of view is, there's no such thing as perfect balance in any MMO. I mean, that has been my point of view from day one in any MMO, is that there's always going to be something that rises to the top. But what I do
The
hope,
cream. That's what
Yeah.
rises to the top.
yeah, very true.
Here, before you go on with that, Riot.
No, sorry. Let him go.
I know. I'm sorry. But real quick, Riot August has talked on stream saying like, they could make League perfectly balanced. They could make everything 50% win rate if they really wanted to. But fun doesn't come from balance.
Right.
Fun comes from the illusion of balance. And it's kind of like the freedom of choice thing where you have the illusion of choice or something like that. They could make weapon skill trees perfectly balanced while making other parts of the games not perfectly balanced. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of just so we're clear on that. I think that is a very possible situation that they can do.
Yeah, and kind of along those lines, I think you and I were headed in the same direction, Lloyd. Like from my perspective, while we may not have like perfect balance in that, like in the sense of like, you know, what you were talking about with the League of Legends example, what I do feel is important is that you have a good level of viability with all playstyles. Not to say that all levels of viability are equal, far from it, but at least you have like, hey, if I want to play a mage this way, right, and I'm being a mage fighter or a fighter mage, right, there's certain choices I can make that give me some options within that combination, right? There's still like already inherently an imbalance that Steven has spoken about. He's saying if you want to be the best tank, you need to be tank, right? So I do feel like, I guess what we call like the Uber archetype, right? Was or the double down, I used to call it, right? That is going to have a certain viability with a certain play style. And I feel like your secondary, I'm hoping, is not just limited to flavor. It's it's governed by playstyle. If I want to be more this, then this is generally like the archetypes secondaries I should choose. And within those archetype secondaries, I can go down a path to get to something that feels good for me. And I think your point is well made about, it's not about actual balance, it's about perceived balance. And I think that's going to be something that I think is going to be tougher for the community to digest at first because of the way they're looking at balance in terms of groups. People are very used to, in a lot of MMOs, more of that solo route and being that meta and choosing that meta. And I do feel like there's going to be some growing pains with that.
So even though that comes from like an RP perspective, I think it has a lot of implications on like how the game is designed as well. So, we've been going on for quite a while. We haven't actually talked much about the Firebrand stuff. Let me know if you guys want to keep going back on that.
Firebrand?
Okay.
Haven't we talked about that for like 40 minutes? I'm going to keep talking about it, but
I will talk. I don't have to work tomorrow, so I'm good to talk.
Yeah, it's Labor Day, man. I'm a teacher. We get holidays off.
I don't have work tomorrow either. Oh my god, this is great.
All right, buckle up, people.
Buckle up. I did say it was going to be a long
15-hour stream. You heard it here.
I did say it was going to be a long one at the beginning. So, and then we had a little brief intermission. But here, while we are kind of in a little intermission, let me do two things. One thing is, I'm going to read off all the follows because I appreciate you guys so much. And thank you guys for being here because my internet went down in the middle and we still kept a very large portion of viewers. So like, you guys are awesome. Really appreciate you. So once again, just today we have Wizzy McNasty who followed. We have Just YX on. Jesse is Jeb69, AV Gaming, Cbet, Rigor Mortis, Bonergeese, Grumpy Guys, Surgeon General, Mio, Adestra, Overall Enthusiasm, Trexev, Fupo, thank you for the follow. Tomac Toxilak, that's a crazy name, I like it. And then Threather just followed. Thank you guys so much, I really appreciate it. I am going to play our recruitment video that was expertly made by our GS Sentinels, our GS Sentinels, our Gray Sentinels. I am going to replay it, and there will be a little bit of a video bug because apparently it doesn't like to size properly. So bear with me. I'll get to it. But here, I'm going to let that play through right now.
When we were children, we heard the legends of our lost ancestral homeland. A mysterious world named Verra. A place of beauty and magic blessed by the divines themselves. That mystical world then fell to a great calamity that caused our predecessors to flee before everything descended into madness and flames. These stories fascinated many children, but that was long ago. Now we stand waiting to march through the portals to a land we thought lost. Alongside our fellow brothers and sisters of the Grey Sentinels. We march for many different reasons, but we stand united by one simple goal. Reclaim our ancestral homeland and build a nation where all mortals can call home. We will press onward towards glory, adventure, and perhaps even a bit of prosperity. With each step towards Verra, we recite the Grey Oath in our hearts.
As others fall to darkness, a sentinel is righteous. As others waver before the unknown, a sentinel stands courageous. In times of war, a sentinel's wrath cleaves a path to peace. In times of peace, a sentinel's strength lifts us to prosperity. This oath I pledge as a sentinel. I vow to serve my people, protect my home, serve my divine, and honor my Lord. Gold in peace, steel in war. Together we shall weather all storms.
Okay, guys, that is 07 awesome,
goosebumps, man.
Dude. Chills every time. I actually didn't even hear it, so because it just plays on through stream and I don't actually hear the feedback on it, but I love it. Broken Gasket, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Yeah, so on the topic of Firebrand, there were a few things that I wanted to ask you, Anduin, and Daedalus, because you were there as well. With the raid, how was it formed? Was it like player made? Was it dev ran? How was the raid being formed?
So I think the big thing was Margaret actually was the one who organized like the layout of the raid and stuff like that.
Nice.
The devs knew that the raid was heavy healer, right? Mm-hmm. So with how a lot of the abilities work, you need to be in the same squad as someone to get better buffs and better heals off and stuff. So she purposely put healers in each squad, as well as trying to spread out the bards, and then made a like frontline squad, a kind of mid-range, and then like support and etc. squads. And then the goal was to have the cleric be in the group where it's fighting, so then you can get those passive buffs and whatnot around them easier. And that's kind of how it was set up for Firebrand, because of the massive amounts of damage he does, as well as keeping that mana regen up.
Okay, cool.
So, yeah.
And then I also noticed that a lot of the groups seem to be either melee focused or ranged focused. And Daedalus was saying earlier that he was part of like the ranged group. Obviously, as a fighter, you were a melee person, right? Like, so who is like your healer and stuff like that? And what were the communications like on the melee side of things?
I can't recall who my healer was. I just remember the sound of the heals coming off, But,
I just know Luring was Daedelus's healer.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
no, whoever our healers were, they were all phenomenal. Like they were did a very good job keeping us up and getting us back up when we did die. So as far as conversations go, I mean, it was pretty straightforward with us. I think a lot of us have all been playing MMOs for a long time, so we more or less read the fight and adjusted to what we saw. So
yeah, so obviously, just Waxon said, were there shot calls that were going out that we didn't hear on stream? Like, did people like shot call at all?
No, I mean, Steven was doing shot calls and stuff. So like what you were hearing on stream, we were listening to those because they were calling out when random tail swipes or when the big booms would happen, stuff like that. So
okay,
yeah.
But you guys weren't like in like a separate Discord away from the devs and being able to like talk to each other?
No, we were listening to Steven patiently.
Imagine doing that raid with no comms, guys.
Yeah, we were doing it live, but recorded.
Gotcha. So
yeah, we are children are seen and not heard.
Certified gamers don't even need to comm. That's how easy this raid was, etc., etc.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I figured.
I do want to make one point about the healers. Like while we did have like, let's just say, group level healer assignments, the healers were jumping in everywhere. Like even like from a res standpoint, I was getting resed multiple times by the second cleric in Steven's group. He would call out rezzing people, and other people would be like jumping in and like rezzing. So he was definitely like, he was definitely sticking with his cameraman role really well. He did a res or two, but I will say like the true MVPs were definitely like the healers and the like straight perseverance everybody had just to keep going at that dragon.
Right. And to answer your question, Exiled, it's always the healer's fault. So it's just like the jungler in League.
Then it's the fighter's fault.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like junglers in League. It's always their fault. So healers and junglers alike. Anyways, were there... Sorry, Daedalus said that the time to kill was perfect to him. How do you think it felt for you, knowing that there may not have been DPS on the Firebrand while because there was no other PVX happening, so like you're missing out on some possible DPS from another group?
I actually think it would be pretty fucking cool to fight while you're having the strafing run fire blazing over as you're PvPing other people, while you're trying to have your PvEers targeting the boss too, so they can keep up the DPS. Like, I look forward to it. I think it could be a fun experience, especially because like the boss does enough damage to knock you down to have health or more. So yeah, seeing you could really have an ebb and flow in PvP over that boss. So be interesting.
Yeah. Boner, I'm like Bucky. I can dodge every single raid mechanic. I don't take damage. I don't need a healer. I'm just better. I'm built different.
He's just better. Merrills, you heard him.
All right, Daedalus, what were you gonna say?
First raid boss fight, I give Lloyd about 30 seconds before his first death.
Lloyd's just built different, Daedalus. That's what he's saying. He's just built different.
I'm the fucking best.
I know Bucky.
I just
sir,
lay it on the
and
table.
You are no Bucky.
Crosses his arms and just waits for Lloyd to die. I'm not afraid of XP debt, And that's another thing that we were talking about, battle resing, actually, the infinite battle resing. Infinite battle resing doesn't, stop XP debt. You still get XP debt. So there is still risk even with that happening. I do think personally that raids should, you should be able to have a raid wipe, right? Like that should be a thing. You should be able to fuck up in raids. And I know not all gamers are perfect like me who can dodge every raid mechanic.
Gamers.
I'm just kidding. Because there was actually a raid mechanic that seemed pretty undodgeable, right? There was that AoE fire and that AoE like blast, that like the shockwave that went out. Even with the dodge, like people were taking damage. Like there was almost a zero telegraph for that. So what do you guys think about that? Like, is that good or nah?
I mean, I think it was fine. I mean, there's got to be like mechanics that keep you on your toes. I think it's important to have unavoidable damage because that also helps put some tension on the healers to kind of be on their game as well. Again, I feel like we had like a really strong set of support in terms of healing. Like I just felt like that was what was the true tide turner, because even me and like my role, while I I had very limited opportunity to do DPS because I was focusing more on support, and I think that might have also contributed to the TTK as well. But definitely I feel like for example, like the living bomb was something that came out that if you were in kind of a certain level of health, it was going to one-shot you, right? It may not if you're at full health, but if you are not, right, it definitely is something that you can't avoid. You're just going to get stuck with it. There isn't a way to necessarily avoid that part. So I do feel like there was a good mix of like one-shot mechanics that will clip a decent amount of your health as well. So I did feel like that there was variety there, and there was raid awareness that was required.
Right. Anduin, as a fighter, there's like literally no way to dodge that, right? The shockwave and like the fire wave and stuff.
What do you mean? You just gotta be a man. Just face tank it.
Face tank it? Okay. I mean, you did charge in at 5% HP with like no
hell
health.
Yeah, brother. If I believe in our healers, this is about moral support. What you're not seeing is that the dragon was also doing a lot of focus damage towards the tank in front of him. So Brian was our main tank. He's one of the lead producers. He was being the main tank, and he was keeping the dragon away from everybody else. So like, it was just, we weren't getting hit as much on the front lines because Brian is a good tank. So I just
wait. So quick question. So the tank, he was able to like hold aggro, like pull the dragon in certain directions and stuff like that. And you guys were able.
No, if you're watching like on the video right now, that's Brian in front of him.
Yeah, it's
in front of him.
Kind of hard to tell if like he's just like standing in front of him or if he's like actually pulling the tank's or the dragon's aggro. Like
no, the dragon is looking at him and targeting him. So like when he's turning and stuff, that's Brian turning him around.
That was community questions that were unanswered last night, so that is really cool to know. Like, so that tanks will be able to like help juggle aggro for like this PVX playstyle as well. So I think that's really cool. And then as a fighter, did you pull much aggro? Did you notice like the dragon getting pulled from like extra DPS elsewhere, or was it just always just pretty much on Brian?
He every now and then would move around and try to fight like people. There's a few times he turned on me, and when he did turn on me, I saw my health chunk down pretty quick. But overall, like, I feel like tank aggro control is pretty decent. There's quite a few taunts on the tank bar that allows it to have diversity in what it does. So, yeah.
Unlike some, I do have work tomorrow, so have a good night, Exile. I thought you were gonna ask a question. But
have a good one, XO.
Thank you guys. If you are staying around, appreciate you still. We're gonna keep talking about this because boy, do I have questions. Who said the W word? I did the
W word.
Work.
Work? Oh God, no!
What's that?
I hate adulting.
What is that,
dude? I just got out of summer break, and I feel terrible being a wage slave again. So,
sometimes it'd be like
I'm not
that.
looking forward to Tuesday at this point. It's far off in my mind.
Oh God! Thank God it's only Sunday.
Yeah, Sunday.
Oh
boy.
But yeah.
I do think
fun. It's a fun fight.
Mm-hmm.
I think if this is an example of one of the first big bosses they've designed for this game, we can only go up from here. That's what I'm saying. It's like people are saying this is simple, it's easy, If this is where they're starting, this is on par with most bosses out there. So like, if this is where they're starting, it's going to be intense and amazing once we get to see the other stuff as game develops. And like as you pointed out earlier in this, is that was it Daedalus? Comparing the Elder Dragon fight to this, it's night and day on what we've seen as far as the movement of the dragon and the different things that it does. So.
Yeah, we also know that Elder Dragon was scaled much larger than just this young dragon as well.
Yes.
So, one thing I really do want to... two things I really want to point out is it is doing these mechanics that I've seen in Lost Ark that is like an isometric view, which is like top-down, in a third-person world, which is like that 3 rings, like the very close one does a bunch of damage, then it goes out to the second one. Like you see that in Lost Ark as like an from the top down, but seeing it in an MMO feels different in a way, but basically being the same mechanic. So when I talk about things being transferable from like games, from like single player games or Lost Ark or League of Legends, I hate this community sentiment that like, oh, it's an MMO, like it doesn't transfer over. And this is something that Jamie was saying earlier, but so me and him actually disagree on something. That's kind of crazy, right? We're 2 human beings that disagree with each other but still like each other. But like I think that it's a good mechanic, it can be transferred into an MMO as long as it fits the genre, it fits the thing. So these types of mechanics I think were good for the dragon, and I think we could still keep looking at other games and other mechanics to implement them into Ashes, and it'd be really cool. And on your point a little bit earlier ago, this is just one pocket dungeon out of like the 4 in phase 1. So we have the grand dungeon and like 4 pocket dungeons, and this pocket dungeon happens to have Firebrand in it. Well, it'd be really cool if we get more pocket dungeons that have bosses like this.
Agreed.
Yeah, I think the big thing that people need to keep in mind is this is just the beginning. This is Alpha 2.
Yeah.
We have so much that is to come here, so it's gonna be great.
Yeah. And Alpha 2 is expected to run at least a year. So again, this is our baseline. Feedback welcome.
Yeah, feedback is welcome. And when you were getting asked a question, did the tanks take stack damage for each hit of the dragon that forced him to switch? Should there be stacking damage so that you need 3 or 4 tanks on a raid boss?
I think we only had 4 tanks. Was it Daedalus?
Mm-hmm.
Brian was really the only one that was holding aggro. So I don't know. I was too busy trying to keep my rotation going as best I could, but from what I could tell is, the tanks were holding aggro pretty well. I am assuming that in a harder, more complex fight, as we will have in the future,
or an instance content,
that tanks might have to switch off for mana regen or mana consumption or whatever. So I can totally see that you'll have switch offs happening. So
yeah, one thing I would like to see too. I mean, again, we talked about tank being the Uber tank, but I would like to see some opportunity. While tank swapping, I think would be something that should be looked into and tested. I do like the idea of also having off tanks, and having a role for an off tank. Maybe not necessarily fighting the main boss, but we had obviously ads in this phase that we potentially could have off tanks pick up. I know they didn't move per se, but I think that was probably, in my opinion, I do feel like that would have made it more interesting too, because they were kind of just sitting there and there were so many, and I would have liked to have seen at least a way for us to gather them up, or at least within a certain space, kind of leverage some of the AoE DPS. I think that would have made it more interesting, and it would have given the other tanks something to do. I think there's opportunity for that in terms of tweaks in this fight, future fights as well, right? Is what can you do to really make good use of the different types of archetype combinations in the future, so that everybody has an opportunity to have a role and play a part.
Yeah. I did notice in the chats people were asking if the dragon does damage to the people clumped up, or does the tank the aggro. But they did say on stream that he does do damage to the clumps of people, as you just literally, it's on screen at the moment. He does that fire breath attack. I think that's pretty scripted. There's X amount of people grouped up. It's gonna go in this direction. Everybody has to dodge that way. But yeah, it is a very mobile fight, to what Daedalus was saying as well, even for ranged people for this type of thing. So I think you can kind of maybe bait out some of those mechanics on certain cooldowns and stuff like that. If you want to get really deep into raiding. So I think there is nuance. There is high skill level to these types of mechanics that will be appearing. It'll be pretty fun and interesting to see how the community reacts with this. But I do think probably some mechanics like that will override tank aggro and stuff. I guess it just depends on priority meters and stuff that they have on the back end. Another cool thing that I saw in terms of mechanics was the dragon would jump back and then do a horizontal fire attack. And then he did it again, but from the other direction. So the direction of the horizontal fire attack is different. And then there was another time he does the exact same animation. And so while everybody's expecting this horizontal fire attack and are running towards him to dodge the fire, he just jumps up and slams on the ground and onto 10 people, literally right there on screen. It's perfect. I literally just speak things into existence. And so a bunch of people just take a bunch of damage expecting a certain mechanic and it changing up on them. I think that's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. I like the lack of predictability.
Yeah. I think everybody does, right? If you can't see, people like to predict things in the future but the real like danger and like cool moments are when you actually can't predict them. That's why like shock horror is like always like, oh, it's such a good horror movie, like because you were scared because it shocked you. Of course, you're always expecting the shock whenever you're watching those types of movies, but you still get shocked anyways because something just pops up on screen. So they do exist for a reason. And I think those are really, really cool. Anduin, do you have anything to add on the as far as like the raid mechanics and stuff go?
No, I mean, I think we've really kind of hashed out a lot of the solid mechanics. You know,
Can I ask you more about the fighter then?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
All right, so did you feel like there was like a solid rotation? Did you feel like being in melee and dodging like these like raid mechanics and stuff like that? Did you feel like you could really feel your like class identity being like exposed, or no?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's so many different abilities that the fighter does. There's stuff that's CC, there's stuff that staggers, there's bleeds, there's heavy hits, AoEs, all these different things. So like the fighter has the capability to really do a lot of different things, and a lot of it is buffing itself and debuffing the enemy and getting those heavy hits in. The fighter absolutely feels different compared to, let's say the tank. It's a different feeling front
because you played the tank in Node Wars, and you can talk about that just so I can preface this for the people that are
tank in Node Wars,
just so people don't be like, oh, you didn't play tank here
about. So anyway, but what I can really state about it is, they have different identities, they have different goals, they have different like things they specifically do. So, as far as the fighter goes, it feels good, it feels fun. Looking at the spells that I was using, waking up too early. But looking at the spells, I can see where it will fit in well with PvP. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays in a PvX situation. But it's a lot of mobility and a lot of heavy hits.
Daedalus, I know you answered that question in chat just now, but do you want to expand on that at all?
Sure. So the Doom Tomato is like we've tended to call like the enemy version of Quick Wit, which is like your base skill for a bard. Jan asked if Bucky used that ability since he was close to melee. I mean, I did have an opportunity to throw some tomatoes at the dragon. I think that was. It was good that we could put status effects. I mean, if I remember correctly, I was able to see that status effect go on Firebrand. So yeah, I think I didn't talk with Bucky. I do actually want to kind of corner him and talk to a little bit more about like how he kind of manages different things, because I did notice like a lot of things on the stream that I didn't notice obviously when I was playing, because he was kind of a little bit more removed from where I was. But I definitely feel like there's a lot there that gets to that higher skill tier that I feel the bard is at. Easy to learn, hard to master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys didn't notice, Bucky's kind of a G. He was doing his percussion dance into a flourish while dodging raid mechanics and shielding like 20 people in the raid. Like, dude was everywhere. He was putting out damage. He was definitely singing his melodies and stuff like that. So he was doing a lot of really cool stuff. Like even in the beginning, just like for the dungeon raid, like there was that like lone ranger that he was able to walk up and sleep while he was, while the rest of the people were focusing on the other guys. So there was a lot of things that he did well that really showcased what the bard could be and what the bard could do. So I think that's really cool that we were able to see that from the showcase. Obviously, when we spec for things like a big boss, we don't expect to like CC them. Anduin, is there anything on the fighter you chose not to take because of the encounter that you were going for?
Yeah, there's some abilities that are more PvP centered, I would say, for the fighter that I didn't take. Because I can add another Stager or whatever onto the dragon, but
Oh boy,
sorry.
we're gonna have to move on after this because
I know, right?
he keeps yawning.
I keep yawning. I'm an old man now. No, it's past my bedtime almost. But there's a lot of abilities in it. So like for example, you see with Steven, you see his skill bar, right? So like you can fill up a full 20 skills or whatever on the bar. But not all of them are useful in every situation, right?
Right.
So, at level 20, I could take a majority of my skills that were in my ability tree, but I couldn't take all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's just I like that I can pick and choose and figure out different builds for different situations. So
nice. Yeah. Is there anything that you guys want to add about the Firebrand fight that you haven't already talked about?
Maybe just one like small point, like just similar to Anduin, I kind of felt the same in terms of I had to make some choices. We were even kind of chatting about it a bit in the Twitch chat. Is that I was like getting asked, well, did you take this skill versus that skill? And no, I mean, I made a conscious choice to go at a very like buff heavy route versus maybe one that was more of like a debuff. And I think I like that opportunity to choose like at level 20 is that there were certain things I didn't take because I'm like, okay, this is a big boss. I'm not expecting I'm going to be able to do heavy CC, right? Because it is a boss fight. If it was say more of like what the what the devs were doing at the start, I probably would have gone a different route in terms of the spec as well. So yeah, but overall, I mean, I think it was a good way for me to get a feel for what a bard might be like in a larger fight. I generally, in the Node Wars tests, I actually went the fighter route because the bard wasn't available, but I felt like I was very keen on like listening to what Anduin had to say, where the fighter is now versus then, because I did feel like there was in Node Wars there was a lot of weight, and I did feel very strongly there was a good class fantasy with the fighter. So it's good to see that that's continuing, and that the kit is continuing to be built out, because I did like that, and again it felt good that they were looking at many different options on how you build a fighter similarly to the bard, and I do hope as they build out other classes, they're kind of giving that level of, well, if I want to play this play style, then these are the kind of skills I'm gonna, make available. So yeah, it's good.
I definitely do hope they design around playstyle more so than anything else. I think playstyle is definitely the best way to design like certain classes and archetypes and allow people the freedom of choice to do certain things, as long as they do have that freedom of choice and it's not just like an illusion of choice where like, yeah, I have 3 options, but this one's obviously the best, so I'm going to go with that one. Like, so I do hope they find a way to do that, and I will be giving my feedback along the way so that doesn't happen.
mm-hmm.
I think now we can kind of move into what should we expect for phase 1? What type of like alpha stuff should we really be testing and stuff? Obviously, This one is just the weekend starting October 25th. Wave 1 will be coming in November 8th. And it'll be every weekend up until phase 2. I've seen some people a little bit confused on that, where they thought it was just the one weekend and then, phase 2 comes in December. Like, no. Every single weekend, we will probably either have a wipe or something like that, but we will be entering into Verra and we will be playing. There will be hot fixes deployed as necessary. So if there's something that is just completely broken, they will come in and fix it. I can tell you that from Alpha 1. They did many hot fixes, and those devs worked pretty much day and night. Like they do so out of passion, and now there's more devs, so they have more chances to
demons when it comes to fixing stuff. It's crazy how fast the turnover is when it comes to fixing bugs.
Yeah. So yeah, expect a lot of hot fixes, expect a lot of bugs, expect a lot of things to be broken. That would be my, initial thing. There will be minor version releases, balance changes, and major bug fixes every 3 weeks. So yes, balance changes will happen. You will have the chance to give feedback on balance. And then every 6 weeks, there will be a new major version deploy, new features, and content. So you'll be experiencing more things every 6 weeks as well. Just be aware, we are testing. We are not really playing a game. Although you are playing the game and you are doing like bug reports and stuff like that, your feedback is probably the most crucial thing. They do want feedback. They want constructive feedback. Planendorf did say something to me before that just saying something feels bad is generally a good direction. So like, yeah, I don't like this. It feels bad. Even if you can't explain it, being able to say that, the devs behind the scenes can kind of like, yeah, I can see what they're saying. Does it make sense for us? And can we help alleviate that from the player experience? So
Fupo, that's
this stream
too
feels
damn
bad. Why does it feel bad? So yeah, I guess that's another thing is, if you think it feels bad, why does it feel bad? Or what makes you feel bad about certain things? Being able to elaborate that is better, but even just saying it feels bad is crucial information. Yeah, so that's what I would say on things to expect from phase 1. I know this is I'm not letting you guys talk a lot, but this one is my last thing before I kind of like talk about the rest of
you're good.
what to
Get
expect.
Through it.
Is networking, stability, all this stuff is going to be happening. And so currently we have the 3 realms on NA, the 3 realms in Europe. So we have, as of 2022, 2023, there was 100,000 key holders, and there was many more that bought the packs. I would expect maybe 20% of those guys to show up. 3 to start, 3 realms to start. And their users per realm that they are wanting to have concurrently up, which means like how many they want up at a time, is about 3,000. They are going to be gearing up for 10,000. So expect things to break, expect them to be overloaded, because they are trying to reach 3 times the size of what they have. And also note that this is on a 55 square kilometer world. It is not the 480 square kilometer world for the 10,000. So these are things to really keep in mind as we talk about these things as well. So you will be in queue times. You will be, breaking servers. You will get crashed out. They are going to be stress testing these things. I would expect a lot of things to break. Do you guys have any thoughts on that? Like any feedback on what you've I imagine there's only 40 people. You probably didn't experience that, but did you experience any network instability while you were playing in Firebrand?
No, I did not. It was actually really smooth from my perspective in terms of both like graphical performance and their lag was not an issue either.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was very stable for me. I actually, to think about it, I don't think there were any crashes from people, really at all.
That's good. I think it is important to note that you guys were probably on like one server worker with 40 people, so 40 people, no lag, no instability, good sign. But just keep these things in mind that if you are doing the dynamic gridding and there's a bunch of people in an area, you know, maybe the networking's not up to par or something like that. So just be cautiously aware of that as you are entering Verra in phase 1. Phase 2, phase 3, I expect it to be much better. But yeah, as that is their main focus, that's what I would expect.
Yeah, and maybe just a couple of like points there. I think you hit on like a lot of great things. Also, like in terms of expectations, this list that you see here for phase 1 is the exit criteria. So that means, right, that all of this isn't going to be there on day 1. And that's something to think about too, as you're testing, right, and giving feedback. Is not all of these items will be in, so don't expect that they will be, and they'll come in over time. And as with anything, like whenever you're developing something, you put something in, you break something else. And I think even like in the later phases, like I expect it to be more stable, but I'm not going to say I wouldn't expect it to be, you know, perfect, right? Because you're still going to have that same level of you introduce something new, you break something else.
Yeah. Anything else to add on that, Anduin, on as far as like stability and stuff goes and what to expect on that?
No, I just think, you know, I think people need to have their expectations tempered. You know, I am a big proponent of, you know, I'm not a doomer in that everything will suck, but, you know, go into the expectation with no expectations, right? Because everyone has built up ashes in their own way. Everyone has made ashes into this huge, massive thing, and there's no possible way the devs can meet the expectations of people. So keep it reasonable when you go in. If things are amazing, it's amazing. If things are buggy, if you're falling through the map, it's an alpha. It's just how it is. So
I fell through the map so much in Alpha 1, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that we have 55 square kilometers, which is basically New World. And then that's going to include the Riverlands, desert, and the tropics. We're gonna have 1 grand dungeon, which I believe is Carfin. And then we're gonna have 4 pocket dungeons, which is the Steel Bloom capital is one of them, I believe. I would assume so. Just because they've shown it on stream. I don't know what the other 2 might be. Maybe we get to see Sandamami and the Scorpion. Maybe we get to see the fish world boss, you know, like out into the waters. Maybe we don't. It'll be interesting to see like which of those ones we have. Nodes will be in a functional state, not a, you know, ready state. So you will be able to interact with a bunch of the stuff in the node, but you probably won't see it in its full glory, right? We will have lawless zones. So we will have the 6 archetypes, not the summoner, not the rogue, but we will have lawless zones, which are basically just PvP areas that are going to have the best shit, because maybe the crafting's not up to par, so maybe we get gear a different way, you know? So yeah, this is like their interpretation of getting like the best gear for phase 1 of the Alpha 2. I will be trying to set up PvP tournaments during the weekend tests. So if you'd like to join, reach out to me on Discord. You can either join my personal Discord, which should be linked below in the stream, or in YouTube, wherever you find this. And then you can DM me anytime. If you would like to join, I could use help setting that stuff up. No logistics yet, but I promise there will be as soon as I figure out what the hell the lawless zone looks like. Basic rules are: somebody tries to gank us, you kill them. If somebody tries to interrupt with the duel, you kill them. It is quite literally a lawless zone, and I truly intend it to be a organized, lawless tournament. And if it turns into absolute chaos, then hey, you know what? That's content for me, baby. So I'm gonna keep going with that. There will be flying and ground mounts because the nodes will be able to level to 3. Some of those systems will be at level 4, and then we will have rafts because of PvP caravans and stuff. And the cool stuff, things that I want to ask your guys' opinion on, is we are going to see surveying for the first time. We are going to see hunting for the first time. We are going to see gear enchanting for the first time, and we're going to have item deconstruction and repair. That might just be like, repairing your items and stuff like that we normally see.
What about fishing?
But, there's fishing, processing, and crafting. But like those are the things that we haven't seen yet that are going to be there for Alpha 2 Phase 1. So what do you guys think about that?
I think it's fantastic. I'm
Mhm.
really, I am really looking forward to digging into crafting. We did not have an opportunity to do that in A1, so I am very interested in how that is looking and how that's going to shake out. And I do like the fact that they have so much variety built into the first phase for crafting.
Mm-hmm.
I love doing that. Like enchanting especially, I think is kind of fun, and it makes me like I am very excited about that because obviously, your baseline is going to be crafters are making the best shit in terms of like armor and weapons. But I do like the fact that if you're an enchanter, you're going to be able to even take those weapons that aren't necessarily crafted and kind of put on like better tweaks to that too. So you kind of have that bridge in between getting something that might take a longer time to make, like a piece of armor, etc. You might have like enchanting more readily available. So we'll see how that shakes out. But that would be my thinking, is that you'll likely be able to enchant before you're really getting into the bigger, like, full crafted gear where you might need a ton more materials.
Mm-hmm.
Surveying is not a subset of archaeology, AV. Surveying is like, if you are out gathering, you would be able to survey a node like I don't know, an iron node or something like that, or like a bronze node, and you'd be able to say, oh, that goes over here, and you'd be able to like kind of put that on your map to realize like, oh, this is where things are on the map. This is where I mine this stuff, and then you can bring that stuff back to your node. That's what surveying is. Like, you can figure out certain types of materials and where they are. Yeah. So yeah, it's not just for mining. It is also for like lumber, and other, I guess. What is that one where you pick flowers? Whatever that one is, herbalism. That one.
Herbalism.
Yeah. So yeah, it affects most, if not all, gathering. So that'll be interesting to really experience without a showcase. So that's really cool for me.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything more on the stuff that we're about to see in terms of like the crafting and stuff, Anduin?
No, I think it's going to be really interesting for our people who want to be economists in the game to see the various systems. I know in A1 we got to see like, the little kind of how weapons needed to be designed. Like you built the hilt, you built the guard, stuff like that, the blade, etc. for a sword. It's going to be interesting to see how that works, and see how customizable different swords can be. Like if you can build a sword to fit a person's play style, that'd be really cool.
Yeah. I'm also really keen on like, can I change my bow to have intelligence so that it affects my bard skills? Like what if I want to be a bow bard? Something along those lines. Like, I'm really hoping for gear enchanting, I can see a lot of that stuff, because people have pointed me to the wiki and said, oh, it's going to be like this, and I hope it is, because otherwise my hopes and dreams of the weapon system may be something that I need to give feedback on,
have a weapon idea.
Do you want to
It's a
share with the
loot.
class?
It's a loot that's a bow.
Okay. Oh.
It's specifically for the bard, and the arrows are shaped like a what the hell you call it? The string playing thing.
That's called
So
a bow
then
singer.
Yeah, you shoot it out, and it'd be great. It's a multi-purpose instrument. This is what I want.
Daedalus. I think it's bedtime, Anduin. All
I
right.
will say like one thing on the crafting. I agree with you on the enchanting, but I don't want that to be the only opportunity. And I think they mentioned this that
Yeah.
crafters can tweak. So I like the baseline gear too. I think it would be good. And one other thing, and not that I'm like equating Ashes to WoW, but something that I heard about recently in the latest WoW expansion is there's like a flask you can get that allows you to see hidden nodes. I would love if you get deeply into surveying, you'd be able to do that too. I think that's like would make that next level and make that extremely cool to be able to spec into. If your focus is really being the best gatherer out there, you can find those rare materials that not everybody can see on the map and chart them too. I feel like that will give a really good appeal and utility to being a gatherer, other than just maybe something more boring like, oh, you can gather more materials from a node or have a better chance at rares. I would like you to be able to kind of have that second sight.
Right. Well, this is where I turn into an intrepid shill, everybody. So I'm just gonna let you know this is the phase 1, wave 1 stuff. Basically, you are allowed to start accessing the stuff with the alpha key November 8th. If you want in, that is how you do that. You will have access to 1 month playtime after getting the pack. You have like $15 worth of embers, and then you will have access to phase 2, phase 3, and all the betas going forward. This was changed by Steven. He was like answering questions on Reddit and stuff like that. So yeah, but that is the end of my intrepid shilling. I just want more players to play with. I really don't care if it's a bot key or if the key was free. I don't give a shit. I just want to play with more people. I want to break the game. I want to figure out things and play with more people. So that is my goal. Just know everything is a work in progress. Our feedback is very, very vital, and I really don't want to have this confrontation with devs going forward. But starting with Anduin and then on to Daedalus, is there anything you'd like to plug here? Say at the end of the pod. Are you guys going to be streaming Alpha 2? Are you guys going to be doing anything like that? Go ahead.
Well, I think we'll be, streaming here on the Gray Sentinels stream here, when we're going out and about exploring. I mean, especially if we're doing guild events, we want to stream so people can see what we're about, see how we play, see, our identity as a guild. So, that's something I'll be doing, getting into A2.
Nice.
Yeah, and then the other thing is, a little explanation for those who are in here that aren't in a guild or are looking at guilds and stuff. We have around 100 plus people for Alpha 2. So if you're looking for a group where there's lots of people to play with, lots of people to test with, come join us. You don't have to pledge yourself right away. But, playing
Hang
MMOs
out.
suck when you're playing solo. So find your group.
Yeah, if you're getting ganked out in the world, come hang out with us. We'll help you.
We'll fight people for you.
Yeah. First one's free of charge. After that, fork it up.
Right. Speaking of shilling.
Yeah, exactly. Daedalus?
I mean, I just like to kind of build off of what Anduin's saying. I mean, I'll be doing stuff and things with the guild. I don't plan on streaming on my personal account at this point. I'd rather kind of work in with guild events. I think that'll be the best place to, like, you know, continue to build the community that we've already got a great foundation on, and be able to showcase it to potential new members. So that's my plan.
Nice. Can they find you anywhere else? I know you were kind of working on your YouTube and stuff. Do you want to plug that?
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on YouTube, youtube.com/c/The Ashen Herald, or on that X thing that I will continue to call Twitter until the day that I die. And it's at The Ashen Herald.
Oh, wait, I have one last thing to plug real quick.
What's up?
We have been hard at work in the Gray Sentinels productions, and we have a shit ton of content coming out. So if you are looking at Ash's content, if you're wanting to learn more about our guild, if you're wanting to learn more about just Ashes in general, the lore, whatever, please give us a subscribe or a follow on YouTube, because we're going to be posting stuff there probably, you know, a couple times a month. So come check it out. You know, make sure to follow us. So yeah.
Interesting. I was not aware of these deadlines, Anduin, and I am part
You weren't
of this
aware
production.
of these deadlines? What do you mean? Mordor and Exile have been working.
I know they've been
feverishly.
working. I just wasn't, you know. Never mind. I'm just gonna leave it at that. We're gonna talk. All right, that should be everything. We'll rise again from the ashes of the gray, the first Sunday of next month, which I should probably look up right now because I don't know what the first Sunday of next month is. It is
it's
6th.
a Sunday.
It is a Sunday. It is October 6th. So
Yes.
that is the next Ashes of the Gray episode. And yeah, please feel to join our Discords. They're linked below. They're linked in the chat. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, smash that like button. And I don't know. That was stupid. Anyways, once again, thank you all for coming. Stay golden and righteous. And as always, we'll see you on the first Sunday of next month. Love you guys.
Have a good one.
Take care, everyone.
Oh yeah, the outro. I should probably do the outro, huh?
You should do the outro.
Oh my god. Okay, yeah. And then we'll probably raid over to Llewd since he's grinding Genshin right now, but he is also a up and coming Ashes creator. So that is on the to-do list. But anyways, enjoy our outro and then we will raid on to Llewd. Thank you guys.
Of every blessing of Gray Sentinels we sing, raise our swords, our hearts professing honor to a legion king. Our emblem, the griffin soaring, guides us as we fight, roaring strength and valor in each night's quest. Clothed in glory we are blessed. Gray Sentinels, almost almighty Lord's chosen. In our ranks our spirits awake. With the griffins and the nail bound, let the chorus resound. Our swords and duty, bound by honor, bound by grace, fighting steadfast and true. In the world of Verra, sacred place, led by our Lord Anduin, came on under the griffin's sharp gaze. We stand in battle for our valor proven, a righteous missionary moving. Teach us, griffin ever soaring, all truth, no matter the cost, guiding our blades, our hearts exploring. Just praise, dare to be lost, uphold truth, no matter the cost. Raise our swords, our hearts professing honor to our liege and king. In battles fought our valor proven, our righteous missionary moving, with the Griffins emblem bound. Let the chorus resound. Stealing